The world is changing exponentially. Humanity will see more changes in the next 20 years than it has in the past 300. What we do will change. How we do it, even more so. Be ready. Join the education revolution designed to impact and transform lives. Access 300 world-class programs in over 40 areas of study from over 30 international partners and affiliates in an education ecosystem like no other. Become a future-proof global graduate now. Own your future.
Hello, hi. A very good evening to all of you and happy Labor Day. Right. Welcome to our session for this evening of Lawyer in the House. And this is part 2. And this is our second session where we want to talk about more on how the COVID-19 regulations or how the COVID-19 rules would have affected us. We had our first session on Wednesday, and with a good time chatting with 2 experienced lawyers. And what we did really was where we wanted to talk more to them to find out more of how the regulations would have affected contracts. And so tonight we are doing it from a different angle. And it's Labor Day. Happy Labor Day to all of you. My name is David Chang, and I'm with BAC College Singapore. And tonight we have with us 2 lawyers. We have Gokul and we have Das. And tonight what we want to do really is that we want to be able to talk about a bit of slant concerning how the COVID-19 regulations would have affected us as employees, as laborers as such, or workers in general. In fact, more specifically as individuals. You are aware, of course, that what has happened so far is that the circuit breaker has been extended. And so in consequence, we find that we have also cut down or reduced on the essential services that are being run in Singapore. We also have more regulations that restrict movement. And so we have with us 2 distinguished gentlemen. And that is, we have Gokul and Das. And I want to invite them to join us now, Gokul and Das. Hello, Das.
Hi.
Hi.
Good evening.
Good evening. And I'll introduce Das shortly. We also have Gokul, and Gokul would be somewhere with us. But whilst he is joining us online, I want to just give some basic housekeeping rules. And that is, firstly, we have people watching us on Zoom as well as on Facebook Live. And if you're with us on Zoom, thank you so much for joining us, but kindly mute your microphones, off your video, so that makes a much nicer and enjoyable experience for all parties, especially because we are broadcasting our Zoom session here also on Facebook Live. And so again, I want a big shout out to all of you on Facebook Live. Thank you for joining us. Welcome to our session. And so whether you're on Facebook Live or on Zoom, we want to take your questions or comments. So feel free to type away. And I have my colleague Subra, a co-moderator or co-host with me on the show. And he will join me shortly later as well by collating all the questions and then presenting the questions from our social media to our 2 speakers, right? But I want to make it clear that even as our lawyer speakers share their views, these are purely their views or their comments or their opinions, and our way of trying to provide an awareness to the community. In no way of what they're saying will it represent any form of specific legal advice. For that, you can approach your lawyers. I'm sure they are more than able to assist you with the specific concerns. Otherwise, we're here to chit-chat, right? And I'll just introduce Das briefly. He is Khalid Das, and he is the Managing Director of Khalid Das Law Corporation, and he specializes mainly in criminal matters. So that's Das. And of course, Gokul, he has a string of achievements behind his name, and he is a partner of T2 and Isaac. And so we are very honored this evening to have both Das and Gokul to join us. And I think that being Labor Day, it's fitting for me to start off, I suppose, a session by asking a very labor or employee-oriented question to Gokul, where Gokul, my first question is for you. In view of Labor Day and when we want to commemorate, remember the workers. At the same time, I think we want to understand more of how these COVID-19 measures or rules have affected employees in Singapore. Are there any implications for employment? Gokul?
Thank you, David, and happy May Day to you and everyone else.
Thank you.
As far as the question is concerned, as you know, the amendments to the legislation have not touched upon this. But what the government has done is, as you are aware, there were 3 budgets which passed, and a total of $60 million was pumped into it's going to be pumped into the system. And one of it, which would help both employer and employee, is the job support scheme, which was announced in the budget, and further enhanced measures in the resilience and the solidarity budget. The government, in essence, will co-fund the first $4,600 of gross monthly salaries paid to local workers for 9 months. During this circuit breaker, the government will provide funding to cover 75% of that of all sectors. So during this circuit breaker, 75% for all sectors. But this will go on for a period of 9 months, which is inclusive of the 2 months. The following months will follow a certain formula, meaning there are certain tiers. The first tier will get 75%, the second tier will be entitled to 50%, and the third tier will be entitled to 25%. So these measures are meant specifically to assist both employers and employees to tide themselves through this period. For example, the first tier will cover the airlines, airport ground handlers, licensed hotels, licensed travel agencies, cruise lines, and others. Tier 2 will be licensed food stalls, which will also include hawker centers as well. So that will be 50% of the gross monthly wage per employee. So that is intended to assist. And the other tier, which everyone else falls under, or all other employees fall under, would receive 25% monthly wages per local employee. So that's one way in which the government has swiftly come into the picture and pumped this amount of monies to assist both employees and employees to tide over this period. So that's one of the measures which they've come with. As you know, there are other measures as well. They have this flexible, they have this flexible work schedule. Before that, just to clarify that the 75% is for these 2 months. It's cut across the board. It doesn't go by the tiers, as I mentioned. The tiers are in respect of after the first 2 months. The flexible work schedule, this schedule is for employers who want to be exempted from the Employment Act requirements for overtime, rest day, and public holiday. The ministry can give them a maximum period of approval of 2 years, but they've got certain criteria to fulfill. So that's also another measure which the government is looking into in terms of assisting both employees and employees.
Would you think that in view of all these so-called benefits, which I think is amazing by Singapore government to assist employers, employees to sort of ride out this period, but I can imagine that there are really some employers, some organizations, and they are really finding it tough, right, to cope. And it may be that for some of these organizations, they have no choice but to let go of certain staff. Now, notwithstanding the subsidies and the benefits you just shared, but what happens to then the so-called rights of these employees or workers, and if they were let go, what kind of laws would they be able to avail themselves to, if any?
Okay, that's a very hard question to answer because it encompasses a few issues. As I mentioned, that the legislation doesn't offer a provision where it would protect every job. But as I said, what the government is trying to do is trying to fund and to keep both employees and employees afloat. But in terms of just before coming to answering your question, Of course, they also have, employers also have the foreign workers, the levy rebates. There's one round of levy rebate which occurred, and there's going to be, there will be 2 rounds of levy rebates as well. The first round of levy rebates, so long as the employers have been they've been paying the levies up to December 2019, they'll be eligible for a flat rate of $750 for each S-Pass and work permit holder in your employment as at 29, I think, February 2020. And for this, there's no application required. The second round of levy rebates, it's eligible almost in mirror to what I just said. But the employers have to make an online acknowledgement that they will use these levy rebates to provide for the pay and upkeeping of their foreign workers during the circuit breaker. Yeah, so if the employers want to benefit from this, in my mind at least, if they want to benefit from these levy rebates, they've got to make that acknowledgement. And that perhaps may answer a little bit of your question, but in terms of letting go of employees, that again, the employees would have to turn to their employment contracts, the terms in their employment contracts, and the Employment Act. So that would, it all depends on what sort of contracts you have and what sort of terms there are in it. But if you want some assistance, there's the tripartite advisory on managing excess manpower and responsible retrenchment. This tripartite is between 3 parties, MOM, NTUC, and Singapore National Employers Federation. They've given some ways in which you, or given you examples in some ways in which you can consider taking on board before pulling the plug on your employees. You can send your employees, for example, for upgrading their skills. You can tap on the training support schemes under the Skills Future and other government grants. So that helps. You can redeploy employees to alternative areas of work within the company. You can implement flexible working schedules, flexible work arrangements, maybe shorter work weeks, or perhaps a temporary layoff. Because we must, I'm a firm believer that this COVID-19, this too will pass. And we must believe in that and work towards that as well. So it also adjusts wages in line with the tripartite norms, and perhaps maybe even implement no pay leave, or maybe encourage them to go on paid leave so that they are still paid during the period before the no pay leave kicks in. And of course, we hope that the circuit breaker will allow us to perhaps not, perhaps get back to, not perhaps to where we were, but close to it, and eventually to where we were before. I hope I've answered your question, because the honest truth is I don't own a magic crystal ball, so I'm just trying to see the best avenues available. And my take is, I think we should look at all of these alternatives before laying off someone.
Yeah, thank you for that. I think I like what you said. This too shall pass, right? And it's also good to hear from you to share how MOM is very proactive, I think, in all the various retraining, all the various advisory guidelines, and all the various subsidies that they have. I'm hoping that this will be sufficient for employers to work out something suitable with employees. Maybe I want to just move on to something that affects us not only as employees, but as individuals. I know just ask this question. Right now, I think the so-called buzzword out there is, what is it that I can do or I can't do in terms of the social distancing regulations? And I understand that you are a criminal lawyer. So it may be that you are aware, or you have some so-called advice for us concerning this particular aspect of the restriction movement control order regulations, so that the public can understand more of what they can or can't do.
Sure. I think, well, happy Labor Day, everyone. Maybe before I start, I will just say that rather than look at the nitty-gritty in terms of what can be done and can't be done, we have to look at the spirit behind the entire set of regulations that have been rolled out. So you find them in the COVID temporary provisions as well as in the Infectious Diseases Act. Plenty of information available online, but and the newspapers are always keeping people abreast of the latest developments. So everyone knows about the rules. You need to wear a mask when you're leaving your home, unless you're involved in strenuous exercise. So the statute also gives you a definition of what strenuous exercise is. So if you're jogging or running, then that's strenuous exercise. In fact, the statute specifically says if you're walking, that's not strenuous exercise. So rather than, I think a lot of the time what we find is people trying to circumvent these regulations, but what we don't realize is that this is not a classroom. This is a real serious issue that's going on all around us. And rather than try to look at the rules from the perspective of what I can do to get out of it, I'm not saying everyone does that. Perhaps some of us will. And it's an attractive proposition, to see how can I get around this, But what are they trying to do? They're trying to limit interaction between people. And that is because there's empirical evidence to show that this particular virus spreads when people get too close to each other, right? And very recently, I think even in the papers, there's some evidence to show that this virus floats in the air for a while. So that's quite scary. So wearing a mask protects you when you leave your home. And they've got lots of other regulations. I think you can look them up, but specifically now they even have rolled out very, very recently requirements for people to register themselves when they are entering shopping malls and supermarkets. Now, this is in tandem with the fact that the supermarkets or malls are also required by law to ensure that a certain capacity is not breached. That means you don't want the place to get too crowded, right? Because that turns the whole exercise into a farce. So I think it's 16 square meters per person. And so they've rolled that out. You see that. And again, so this is another thing that is quite recent. At the same time, the law is trying to make as much space available as possible for people to operate, because you do know that there's a category of people who work under what is now termed essential services. So essential services is also online. It's from health all the way to law, veterinary services, plumbing. It's a laundry list almost, opticians, dentists, and whatnot. But if you look at even these legal services, for an example, we've been required to make an application for a general exemption to operate. And even then, if like say our firm, we got essential services to operate, but at the same time, we are very mindful. So because the law also says you may be given essential services, but you need to ensure safe distancing within your employ. You need to ensure that if people can do what work they can do from outside, then they should do telecommuting. They should not come to the office. So specifically, we've rolled out a no more than one person in the office rule to ensure that that's the best way to safely distance yourself from everyone else in the office. So that's what I mean. These rules and regulations should be seen in the spirit of what they're rolled out for, which is to prevent the further explosion of this pandemic that we're faced with. So that's really my broad answer. But I'm sure people may have little areas where they have concerns, but the broad answer is this. So for example, in condominiums, you find that services are not availed. Go back to the first principle. The first principle is you avoid contact as much as possible. So if the gym is opened and people are going to go and work out in the gym, they're going to come into contact with each other. So hence, gyms are not permitted. When you're going out, you should wear a mask, because there's evidence to show that this virus can spread through your breath. It's like an aerosol effect, and it can spread to other people. Wearing a mask is a protective layer that ensures that you don't get infected by this virus. So I think in interpreting the purpose of this law, let's go back to the first principle, which is to prevent the spread of this virus. I think if you have that at heart, understanding all the rules and regulations become very simple. Sometimes we may, on our own, implement even stricter measures for our own safety, more than anything else, than even what the law calls for.
I understand the part about observing the spirit of the law. And I don't think at this juncture, the public would want to deliberately gather in masses. No, I'm referring to, say, for example, me and my child, we want to step outside to go jogging, two of us. It may be that, say, even in the context of a private condominium, sure, no doubt the gym is closed, the pool is closed. Yes, we get that. I'm not referring to those kinds of services or facilities, but more of me and my family trying to get some fresh air. And me, my wife, and my child, we want to go out to play football, for instance. Would that be permissible? Again, I want to stress, not that we want to breach the law as such or to find a loophole, but we want to just stretch ourselves, our legs a little bit.
Sure. So, I mean, maybe to answer your question specifically, if you want to play football, I suppose it's a strenuous exercise, and you will not require, a mask.
Yeah, not for me, not for me.
I know, but look at the practicality of it. What are you exposing yourself and your child to if you were to go to an open field and play soccer with the child? I mean, and what are you bringing back home potentially to older members of your family? So, which is what I mean, you see. So technically, yeah, maybe you might be able to go and play soccer, but I don't think it is something that if we were to think of our own personal safety, we would think of it as a safe thing. Now, just to answer, so the other thing is also, a dear friend of mine recently asked me whether she can go around her neighborhood, because the roads within her condominium, whether that is a public space. So we did a bit of research yesterday, and we realized that no, the road around your neighborhood is also part of your condominium. So you cannot go running or walking around that area as an exercise. The law makes it very clear. You can go if you want to into a public area and walk, but if you're walking, you have to wear a mask. Unless you are running, then you don't have to wear a mask.
Okay. Then what about things like I know the doctors obviously are essential services, but things like dentists, I don't know, Gokul, you may know, dentists or opticians, TCM practitioners, those who are offering allied healthcare services, not the core mainstream medical services. Would you think that those kinds of services would still be something that people can access or enjoy?
The reason why I'm smiling is because I went to the dentist couple of weeks ago and to get my wisdom tooth extracted. So for those kind of extraction, the answer is yes, okay, but you must make an appointment. But you're going, say, for polishing your teeth, or all of those can be will not be allowed. You can obviously do it once the gates are open. Even for opticians as well, it's allowed, but you have to make an appointment before you go. Again, as what Das, I'll just take on what Das says, but the spirit of the act, it's to ensure that we keep safe distance, and if possible, stay at home. As far as you're playing football, as you said, I'm just saying this in tongue in cheek, because even the EPL, they have postponed it. Maybe you should not consider soccer during, but maybe play at home. But yeah, I agree. It does that. If you want to go for a jog, you want to jog around, or then I think that's okay.
Understand. So, say in relation to your experience about seeing a dentist, so I take it it's more for really essential emergency kind of situations.
Yes, mine was. It was really hurting, so I didn't have it. So I called, make an appointment. But even when you go there, it's very regimental. They have got the seats marked out. Even in the building, they take your temperature. When you go up to the clinic, they take your temperature, and they shut most lifts. If, for example, the one which I went to was in a mall, most of the lifts were shut. Okay, you can only take one lift. So what they tried to do is try to monitor the number of people going in and out. And I thought that was a good idea that they shut most lifts, and just one or two, I can't remember how many it was, but one or two was operating, which brought me to the clinic, and it was very well done. I think I was impressed.
I mean, how is it like currently in terms of the demarcation between recognizing what is essential services or what is not essential? Again, I'm sure there are clear boundaries for either ends, but it may be that there are also the gray areas. Is there some access or resource out there that we could refer to understand more of what we can still operate or can't operate? Say, for example, up and coming now is Hari Raya, and I think that people would like to make cookies, for example. Maybe that some of these people could have taken orders maybe in January or before the circuit breaker. They have taken orders to want to fulfill some home business baking services. Would they still be able to consider this to be essential services and to still go out there to make and deliver cookies? I don't know.
I think for this, if you're talking about just because if you look about it, I don't think the night markets are going to be open. But that's my view. So I don't know whether because that's largely, or from at least what I from my experience, largely that's where the source of trade happens in the night market. But if I think one way around it is to use the Grab services or the other form of services to deliver the cookies. And the objective again, as Spirit, is to keep a safe distance and to stay at home. So they could, I suppose they could get around it that way in terms of using the other services which are available right on those services.
Okay. What about thus, in terms of the criminal aspects of it? I think we have read in newspapers, right? People who have flouted the stay-home orders, or those who may have breached certain social distance rules. What are the criminal consequences that could arise as a result of such offenders?
I think there's already a case reported 6 weeks for Bak Kut Teh. Unfortunate, but I think it's a sign of the times, because I suppose everyone needs to take it very seriously, this requirement. So the fine maximum is 10,000, and you look at 6 months jail. But I think we're looking at the custodial threshold being crossed. That means you are probably going to end up looking at a jail term if you have a clear order not to do certain things that might endanger the general public health. You see, that's what's at stake, public health at large. So I think the authorities have taken a very stern view towards this. So if someone were to have a stay-home notice and decides to leave the house, I think that's inviting trouble, because if the person is apprehended one way or the other, then you're looking at a potential custodial term, a jail term. Now, also leaving your home, the Act actually gives very specific reasons for which you can leave your home. So you need to, if you're leaving your home, you can leave your home for a number of reasons. You can leave your home to, what's the word for it? Try to buy groceries, get essential services for yourself. If you need to get medical treatment, treatment which is of a pressing nature. So there are circumscribed reasons for you to leave your home. And the Act is very detailed. If you go through it, you'll be very surprised to learn that there's a very detailed step-by-step breakdown of things where you can actually leave the house. So for example, the Act says if you're moving house, for an example, or if you're leaving Singapore for good, or leaving Singapore for the time being for whatever reason, if you're reporting for national service, if you're going to go and assist, a person who is above 60 years of age and needs assistance, these are the things where you can actually leave your home. And they've thought it out very carefully. In fact, it's a very impressive piece of legislation, just strictly speaking, as someone who's just looking at it, as we all do, right? Mr. Chang, Mr. Gokul, myself, we look at legislation and we look at the detail into which they've gone, which means they've looked at all the various permutations. So for example, funerals are covered as well. So for example, if you're going for a funeral, it's permitted, but no more than 10 persons. That's what the Act says. So at any time, it says. It doesn't say at any one time. So that's of course open to interpretation, whether you can have a rotation of people. But I think at any time, better stick to 10. So again, a funeral is something which most people wouldn't want to avoid. But wakes, processions, all these are covered under the Act. So it's actually literally a laundry list. And so you're not supposed to meet anyone for any social purpose. Social safe distancing of 1 meter, these are all in place. Now, before I just move on, if I can just latch on to the earlier question that you had, but how do people know what is an essential service? There are two ways about it. The first thing to do is you can go to covidbusiness.gov.sg. So you can just put gobusiness.gov, you'll get to the webpage. It's a very popular webpage, I believe. So there they have a list of all the items, I'm looking at it right now, of all the items which are under essential services. In addition to that, you can also make an application to ask for permission to operate during a material period. So, for example, if you have a business and you want to operate it, you put in an application and then you'll get a response from them. There are also time-limited exemptions. Some people go to the office for specific periods of time to fulfill certain duties. So there is a little bit of flexibility left in there. I think, as in all things, when it comes to the law as well, it's an individual responsibility for your own safety. I think if you are very selfish about it, I think you would be probably obeying the law very easily.
Okay. Yeah, in fact, interestingly that you mentioned this exemption, I think somewhere near my place, there's a shop that sells baking supplies. And I saw a long queue this evening. I went to have a look and I saw that they had obtained successfully the exemption notice to still operate. Whilst it's not your typical F&B outlet, they sell baking supplies, but yet they obtained that particular notice to still carry on business. So I suppose they regard as what you're saying, for businesses who want to operate, they can still apply, and on a case-to-case basis, it could be granted. Yeah?
Correct. And sorry.
Yeah, carry on, Karen.
Oh yeah, that's why I think when they started coming out with this, there was already a public blast informing everyone generally, and that in fact I'm not normally someone who keeps up with current affairs very often, but even I got to know that you could go online and you can sign in to your Corp Pass if you're a business owner or a business operator, and you can apply for an exemption, and you can give them cogent reasons. I think they do consider your application.
Okay. Just now you were saying about how there are certain situations in relation to how we could sort of step out of the house. Say, for example, in the cases of an emergency, look after an elderly person, right? That brought to my mind this possible issue that the public may want to know, such as what about those with children? Yes, I understand now they're all studying from home and all that, but it may be that one or both of the parents are actually involved in essential services. And so they're working really. And how would their kids be looked after? Can they be sent to, say, a grandparent's place or childcare still? Are they still open for parents where both are working in essential services sector and have young kids who need looking after? How would we handle that?
Do you want to take it?
Gokul, maybe you can.
The childcare centers, I think they are still open, so you could actually send them there. And in terms of sending your children to your in-laws' place or your parents' place, it is possible to do that, because I think the government are very aware and alive of that issue, because if you're both working in essential services, there must be some support system. So I think that is covered. Schools, well, because the schools are now shut, so that isn't an issue. For now, I think there is, in my mind at least, there's sufficient avenues for parents who are part of the essential services to turn to. Do you have anything to perhaps add on that? I can't hear.
Sorry. Yeah. Okay. So, is this better?
Yeah.
All right. Sure. So basically, it's also painstakingly set out in the temporary provisions on the circumstances or the permutations which permit you to bring your child out of the house. So maybe it's best if I just look at the Act itself, because it's really quite detailed. I tried wrapping my head around it in a broad sense, but I think it's better to go into the nitty-gritty for this one. Just pardon me. So basically, it says if the parents are working in a essential service, right, then they can actually bring the child to the grandparents' home. So it says, for example, right, if any of the following circumstances exist, then to bring the individual child daily from the individual's place of residence, that means from your house, to the place of residence of any of the child's grandparents. So they're very specific, for the care of the child and back to the first mentioned place of residence. So, so they say if the individual or other parent or guardian, so for example, if you are the person taking care of the child, you're a guardian or you're the parent, works as, for, or with an essential service provider, or works at a specified school or early childhood development center, right? And then the individual or the individual spouse, if the spouse ordinarily resides in the same place, is a healthcare worker, right? Or if you are someone who works as an essential service provider, that's what he mentioned earlier. And so these are circumstances that you can actually bring your child to your grandparents' home. Now, you also have a situation where, as a long-term solution, the grandparent can actually move to the home of the individual to take care of the child, or the child can be moved to the home of the grandparent for the grandparent to take care of the child in the interim. The only thing is that there's a caveat. Once you do this, there's a moving the child over, either way, or the grandparent. You can't reverse it as a grandparent comes over, I stay over for the weekend, then the child goes over, because that defeats the whole purpose. So in addition to that, of course, they've got services available for the child to be taken care of by third-party service providers. So all that's laid out in great detail in the Act itself.
That's right. Okay, thank you for that. I'm looking at some of the social media response feeds, and someone has asked this question concerning plumbers, electricians, locksmiths, whether can they still operate and perform their services during this circuit breaker period. I don't know whether offhand I'm sure the statute would have dealt with that somewhere.
Yes.
I don't know whether or not you have some thoughts or response on that.
Well, strangely, I think because my neighbor actually called me to ask me the same question, so I don't know whether my neighbor is the one who's asking the question.
Okay.
Yes, and for plumbers and electricians and locksmiths, the answer is yes, subject to for only emergency services.
Okay.
In a nutshell, so that's what it is. You can, but it's only for emergency services. So if you're talking about renovating or retrofitting or that doesn't, it is not emergency.
Okay.
Yeah. So nutshell, that's the answer.
Okay, good. Thank you for that.
If I can just add on to that,
sure.
Very briefly, I think this will be very helpful for members of public who have these questions. If you just go to, like I said earlier, this webpage, covid.gobusiness.gov.sg, there's a laundry list of essential services. One tab is Others. So under Others, I'll just briefly rattle off online retail related supply chains, optical services and sale of optical products by appointment only, plumbers, electricians, locksmiths for emergency household services, vehicle recovery repair services, hardware stores, for sale and building maintenance related equipment and tools only, repair of consumer electronics, IT peripherals and household appliances, veterinary services. And so it's actually very interesting. It's a list of items there. So you can go there and apprise yourself on your own. So it's better to be taught how to fish, if you ask me.
Okay, then another question I have at my end, again, from some of our viewers, either on Zoom or Facebook, I'm not so sure. And they've asked this question, which is concerning what if an employee has to pop into the office to collect something important? Can they do that? Or must they apply for permission, right, in these instances?
They need to get exemptions if they to go in. Because when you say pop into, it could be for many reasons. It may not be for immediate purpose. So you need to get the permission, your exemptions, because as what Das had started off the session with, it's about the spirit of the act. It's about keeping distance. It's about staying safe by staying at home. Yeah. So in that spirit, one would think that you definitely need an exemption to get in, because if not, then the floodgates will open. I just wanted to add on that, when Das had given you the set up the website, right, or the address, if you just gobusiness.gov.sg and if you slash essential services, it will give you right smack to that page which Das is referring to.
Okay. Okay, good. I think we want to now respond to some of the other queries which have been collated by my colleague Subra. Hi, Subra.
Hi.
Okay, why don't you just share out some of the questions, and I believe we have quite some responses, questions from the public, and you can help me to moderate this part of our discussion.
Okay, this particular question, there's actually a couple of people asking this. This is about the subsidy, the 75% subsidy. So maybe what I'll do is I'll read out the first question and then I'll also read out the second question. It's slightly different. So this person is asking, during business closure, does the employer need to continue to pay full salary for Singaporeans and PR to receive the 75% subsidy? Or can the employer make a pay cut for employees to reduce costs and still receive the subsidy? So that's one question relating to the subsidy, right? That means you actually take a do a pay cut and then still get the full subsidy from the government. Is that possible, right? The other question was here on Zoom chat itself, and one of the participants has actually asked, right? If the employer puts employees on no pay leave, can they still collect 75% salary from the government and then pay 50% salary to the employee who is staying at home and then use the 25% balance to use it for other costs like paying rent and all that, right? So those two questions center around the subsidy. Yeah. I think maybe Gokul can address this. Yeah.
Yeah, but no, yes, I will address that question. I started off by talking about the job support scheme which the government has set up. The 4,006 is, so if you're earning less than 4,006, the 75% can also work. So if you were to reduce someone's salary, and then it'll be I would think it'll be 75% of that. But if you want to profit or game the system, in my mind, that is not possible. Because that was never the intent of the money which is given by the government. The idea, that the real spirit behind it is to keep everyone afloat as best as they can, as best as we can. So if you're talking about rent, if you're a tenant, I think there are some subsidies which you can get, which can pass down from the landlord to the tenants. So that would also help you as well. Yeah, I hope I've answered the question. Das, do you have anything to add?
No, I don't have anything to add. Not really an area of my expertise, really.
Another question that's here. Mr. Kalidas said that the law is well thought out, but on public transportation, i.e. MRT and buses, there is no legal social distancing required. Is this double standards or is the law flawed?
Well, I think it's a practical reality. You're traveling on public transportation, then if you look at the statutes, this person probably has already looked at the statute. You'll know that these exemptions are there. But at the same time, you see, public transportation, generally, I've not gone on much, but I think the number of people ought to be low if people are not traveling so much to work, and most businesses are not operating at the same level. Even if you are going on public transportation, you see, that's what I said. It's a two-way thing, right? Really, I mean, public transportation is there. If you find the train too crowded, for your own safety, don't take it. Take the next train. Go to the last carriage. Take a bus home. Do something to also protect yourself. Is what I'm trying to say. I think rather than view it as a us against them kind of situation, it's actually all us, and it's for our own safety. So it's not flawed in my view, respectfully.
I suppose it's also a case of where you can't please everyone, right? And there must always be that delicate balance struck. I can well imagine that had we shut down public transportation, then there'll be the other group that will then say that, you are disrupting our lives. We can't get anywhere, right? So there's no end to that. So I think we are still right now in the midst of trying to find our feet, so to speak, as we are dealing with this global pandemic really for the very first time, right, in history for many years since.
Yeah, sorry. There's another question from the Zoom chat participant, and I think this is about workers or employees being able to sue the employers, right? So this is the question: can workers sue employers if they have got COVID-19 at the workplace due to poor safe distancing measures by the employer? That's one question. And then, can dorm operators be sued if they didn't follow regulations relating to number of occupants per room? I think obviously the assumption is that these are people who have gotten COVID-19, and then can they sue employers or dorm operators?
That's quite a tricky question, but if you're talking about regulations, which, say, for example, dormitories are to abide by, most regulations they have the bite of a statute, so there would be repercussions for that. What was the first question again?
So can workers sue employers if they have got COVID-19 at the workplace due to poor safe distancing measures by employers?
Well, I think, well, there are regulations on, just correct me if I'm wrong, on safe distancing, is correct? Safe distancing, right?
Yeah, that's right. Yeah.
I don't have an answer off the top of my head, but I think, well, the honest truth is I don't have an answer on top of my head, so I can't, be irresponsible of me if I were to just give you an answer without looking at the statutes yet.
Maybe if I can just, maybe I'll just pop in as well a little bit,
Yeah.
Mr. Gokul. Yeah, not that I this is a authoritative final position on it, but just off the top of my head, if you ask this question, I would say this. Firstly, the employer, be the dorm or the private company where safe distancing measures were not properly implemented, they are going to get into a lot of trouble because that would be in contravention of statute, right? Clear cut. So they will get into trouble with the authorities. Now, you suffered an illness, an injury as a result of their failure to give you reasonably safe circumstances to work in. And I think 101 taught will tell us there's a duty of care, right? I mean, and is that a breach? Would a reasonable employer have gone against the empirical evidence as well as the law and not given heed to measures which were supposed to be in place? So you must be able to prove, I suppose, that the safe distancing measure was not put in place, right? And then if there's causation, I suppose there might be a possible cause of action, but it needs to be seen in how the courts will view it, because I think for Mr. Gokul and myself, the difficulty is that this is an untested thing, right? But then we have got case law where, for example, an employee gets cancer as a result of asbestos, is it? Or some kind of disease as a result of asbestos. I remember this many, many years ago. Yeah.
Well, for that, right, if you were to, the example which you had cited, where you had sustained an injury at work, then of course you have two claims. I mean, you can either opt for the common law claim by going to the common law courts. Negligence is what you have rightfully pointed out, or you can go under the Work Injury Compensation Act for injury resulting in the course of work. But that is it. Yeah. So those are the options available. But as I said,
the interesting question is whether an illness is an injury.
Yeah. Well, yeah, that's
interesting.
I think there's some literature on it.
Be, right?
As I said, there's some literature on it, but and I mentioned earlier, the caveat at my end must be irresponsible of us to give an advice.
Sure. I think for sure, whoever suffers like that will go through.
Right. There's a very general question here. I don't think it's quite on the law. Maybe it's a case of seeking your views about the current situation. So this is what the person says. Hi, both. Given the current COVID situation and the parabolic curve in new case numbers, do you think that Singapore will be easing some restrictions on the circuit breaker. Malaysia will be easing some restrictions on Monday. Will Singapore follow suit or remain on the restrictions?
My short answer is the honest truth, hand on heart, I don't have a clue, but hand on heart, I hope that, as I said earlier, that this too will pass, and we hope for the restrictions to be lifted gradually, and all of us can hopefully go back to work and be happy to see zero on the scoreboard. Yeah. So that's my hand on heart answer to that question, and I think Das would share the same sentiments.
Well, I of course we all want this to go away, but it's horrible being stuck at home on a Friday night. Don't you agree? But the fact, of course, remains that there is a direct correlation between the number of cases and the stringent measures that are in place. So I think it makes logical sense that as the numbers go down, and if they are convinced that the number of cases will not spike, and they give themselves a nice long runway, and if everything is good, then I think they would want to relax the measures, because it's in everyone's interest to let the economic engine, restart, as it were. But until that happens, I think we all need to be cognizant of the fact that this is personal safety, our lives, the lives of people that we love, and our friends and neighbors. So it's not something to mess around with for the time being. So I think in the foreseeable future, I agree with Mr. Gokul. I don't see this being lifted either.
Okay, I think we want to wind down shortly. Just maybe one final question. And this is something which I suppose may not really be a legal question as such, more of policy. I'll just read the question and we'll wind down with this. Why is the government holding employers hostage by forcing them to pay employees full salary just to get the 75% salary subsidy? With no business to do, how can my company survive? If I declare a bankrupt, the employees will all have zero jobs. Why is the policy so unbalanced? Company costs need to be cut down for companies to survive.
Sounds like an employment question.
Yeah, I mean, it's not so much as a question, I suppose, but obviously, a very sincere, frustrated employer. Yeah.
Sure.
Gokul, you want to?
Yes, he feels compelled to answer this.
Well, as I started off, I also started off the section by saying, I don't have a crystal ball, and I wish I did. But I think it's a very policy-driven sort of answer which is required, and the honest truth is I don't have the answers to that. But the spirit of this entire pandemic, or rather combat this pandemic, as what Das has said, but keeping safe distance, and hopefully we'll get through this, and hopefully that situation would ease up, and hopefully we could tap on what the current systems are available, as I mentioned earlier, like for example, the flexible work schedule which you can apply. You can get exemption for 2 years, you can be exempted from the Employment Act requirements. Well, of course, there's certain criteria to it, and naturally the JSS, the Job Support Scheme, will help. And in the other examples which I gave you, which was derived from the tripartite advisory on how to deal with retrenchments and excess manpower, and during this period of time, there's no one size fits all for this, and that's my honest view to the question.
Okay, sure. Thank you for that.
I know I've not answered the question. I've not given a yes and a no, a very regimental answer. But this is the best in my mind, at least.
Okay. We want to wind down, and maybe I'll just see if there are any final words from both of you, Das and Gokul, before we end a session for tonight. Das, any final words from you?
Well, maybe at the outset, I should thank BAC for organizing this. It's made my Friday evening a lot more interesting than the past few Friday evenings. right? And there's only so much Netflix you can do, right? You realize there's a saturation point. But long story short, thanks for organizing this. And the next thing is, I think, hopefully this turns around sooner than later. That's all I can say.
Sure. Gokul?
Yeah. Likewise, I'm also, as I said, I'm holding my breath for the day when we all can get back and and see each other in person and have that coffee with you guys. On that note,
Okay.
Not necessarily coffee, right? Huh?
thanks, Sukul.
Not bubble tea either, right?
No, far from that.
Yes. Okay. So with that, we want to draw to a close for our session for tonight. And thank you, all of you on Zoom, on Facebook Live to watch this. Thank you for joining us. Thank you, Gokul and Das. You've been wonderful. Just before we end, I want to just show up a simple screen where, for those of you who, again, if you have nowhere to go tomorrow and you're free, feel free to join us, where we are having a conversation series with some of our students who have done the law degree with us and have moved on to practice. So if you're interested, feel free to join us for that particular session. Right? Otherwise, we want to end a session for tonight. Thank you so much. You've been wonderful. And have a good evening and enjoy your remaining of a Labor Day. Thank you.
Cheers. Bye.
Cheers. Bye-bye.